So, as I keep on reminding you, this reform nonsense can sometimes come at such a pace and such a quick pace as well. I can end up missing things sometimes. And always remember, there's other stuff about UK politics I really want to cover. But as I've said, I think my time is best spent at the moment highlighting just how bad these reform people really are at running stuff at the moment. Because if this is how bad they are at a local level, then how bad is it going to be if they actually get in charge and are actually, in charge of governing the country when they can't even govern properly, efficiently, or even effectively these local councils? And so much stuff happens. Sometimes I miss stuff, sometimes don't end up covering stuff. And we've missed out some stuff that has happened this week in Leicester. Now, remember, budgets are coming up. Budgets are due. And the deadline and the time frame always is your budget goes before the cabinet in December and is past them. It then goes to the full council in January. It then goes to the budget committees in February, where it can finally be passed off, done, job done. It's all ready and set to go in time for the new financial year. Right? That's how every council pretty much does that. That's how they do it. The reform guy in charge of finances at Leicester has stepped down. So Dan Harrison's grand plan, which he's putting all his eggs into this, hopefully, that this audit that's going to take place and somehow save them all, is honestly, it's not looking good. I have said this before, and I will say it again in regards for this Leicestershire council. I honestly wonder if they are going to make these deadlines. I honestly wonder if they are going to make these deadlines, because it is not looking good, especially when your chief finance officer also left this week. Something I did want to cover, but unfortunately, other things in Kent started happening, and I didn't get a chance to cover it. Still, by the way, surprised Linda Carmen still at this moment in time, still in charge. Kind of shocking me, but that's probably another story for another time. Anyway, back, of course, to this story. What is going on here? Because questions are, of course, now being asked about this entire savings audit. Because, of course, Reform UK forced this through, done this, not even thought about any of it. And now some questions are being asked about this audit, which, remember, Dan Harrison putting all his eggs into that basket in the hopes that somehow, in some way, this finds all this hidden lost loot in the Leicestershire County Council coffers. Anyway, let's get on into this. But before we do that, of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and the subscribe button down below as well. Don't forget, of course, to ring the bell as well so you get notifications when we go live or when we drop a new video. Down below, of course, there are links to the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the YouTube membership down below as well. So thank you very much to everyone who does help us support the channel. This QR code up here will take you straight to the Patreon page as well. So, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help support the channel. Don't forget to leave a like and a share. And, of course, don't forget to leave your comment down below as well, especially if you are from Leicestershire. We, again, would love to know what you think about all this potential chaos that's coming your way very, very soon indeed. So, let's get on into this. So, cost now questions remain as Reform UK Council set to embark on savings audit. So, Leicestershire County Council looks set to launch now a major savings review, but questions now remain over how much the audit itself will actually cost. The Reform UK run local authority is now seeking in to bring external companies to carry out an external deep dive into its spending bid to cut costs. The county council currently needs to plug an expected 90 million gap in its day-to-day spending by 2029 in order to balance the books, something it is legally bound to do. A further 80 million then needs to be found in that pot on that money to be then set aside for the projects that the council has had a £180 million deficit for, of course, special needs education and disability spending. This is, of course, despite more than £280 million worth in savings already having been made across the council's spending since 2010. The authority is now long acknowledged to be one of the worst funded in the country, which again is a problem. Like, we cannot ignore fundamentally what's been happening to a lot of these councils. First of all, but Reform are now in, they're the ones in charge. How are they going to manage all this cost? Well, apparently, you get outside companies to come and do a big audit. Anyway, opposition councillors, of course, now criticise the use of external consultants as expensive, while questions remain over precisely how much this audit is actually going to be costing. The Conservative leader of the opposition, Deborah Taylor, said that it was, of course, disappointing that leaders were, of course, taking this approach rather than using the free DOGE-style audit promised by Reform UK in the run-up to the election. Well, of course, if you also haven't heard, Zia Youssef has now quit as the leader of the DOGE unit and operation. So much for all that, because again, turns out this DOGE stuff couldn't find anything. So Zia Youssef is silently quit. And then, of course, someone else is going to take it over. And then they go, oh, well, we couldn't do it. Or they'll make up some excuse why it couldn't work. Anyway, she said Leicester County Council has been so underfunded for years, despite, of course, cross-party efforts, repeated representations to successive UK governments have now fallen on deaf ears. Under the previous Conservative administration, we delivered over £280 million worth of savings from 2010 to 2025, protected vital services, and we were now constantly ranked now amongst the most efficient county councils in England, all whilst now being the lowest funded. The new Reform administration have now chosen not to use, of course, the party's free Doge team, as, of course, promised during the election campaign. Disappointingly, instead, they have now chosen to spend taxpayers' money on exclusive outside consultants, something they say also called out during the election campaign, of course, as wasting taxpayers' money. They are, again, yet to, of course, publish how many of these consultants are, of course, costing. So, of course, there's a complete, clear lack of transparency. What a surprise. Prior to, of course, the election, Reform UK accused the Conservative leaders of authorising wasting staggering sums of money, including through spending more than £35 billion in consultant in just 3 years. A party spokesperson told the local Democracy Reporting Service at the time, Reform councils elected in May will introduce a British-style Doge audit to Leicestershire County Council and cancel the fraudulent contracts and stop the waste. Oh, look, they're in. They've had a look. Turns out, yeah, all these contracts, yeah, they're not actually that fraudulent. There's a whole system of checks and balances already in place to make sure that, fraud doesn't happen. Does it happen? Yes, sure. But guess what? It gets caught by all those checks and balances that they complain about or say that don't exist. And oh yeah, it turns out, yeah, there is no waste. What a surprise. Anyway, they continue to say, of course, only reform-led councils can, of course, start delivering now for local people, whether, of course, that's lowering council tax for fixing potholes or investing in services. Turns out none of these reform-led councils have even done that at all whatsoever. The party, of course, later clarified it did not have any evidence that fraud had, of course, been committed, but they would be examining contracts to ensure that, of course, they were procured properly. I mean, we've already been highlighting this since May, and they're now only starting to realize that. The longer they're in power, the worse this is just going to be, honestly. It's just getting more and more comedic, honestly. It's just insane. Anyway, following, of course, the election, Reform once again did confirm a DOGE-style audit based on Musk's part of the Department of Good and Efficiency team, which worked for which didn't work for President Donald Trump, was, of course, expected in Leicestershire and would, of course, not cost the public any public person a penny, as the team now would be working pro bono. However, the party could not even get a date for where these auditors would come. No figures yet have been given for how much external audit is going to cost the Leicestershire County Council, with a spokesperson saying that information would, of course, be confirmed subject to cabinet approval and, of course, the use of legal time periods. The cabinet is, of course, set to meet next week to try and sign off on the audit contract. So, well, that'll be fun. We'll find out how much that costs next week. So watch out for that. The upcoming review has now been described as wide-ranging by the authority, with a spokeswoman saying it will take at least a fine-tooth comb to all the authorities' 1.3 billion yearly spend. It is expected to, of course, focus on trying to bring down costs through prevention work, how the council buys things, and reducing duplication, as well as trying to speed up projects already in place, such as work to reduce the growing cost of children's social care placements. Again, good luck with that. Leader Dan Harrison said, we were elected to, of course, cut costs with a sizable 90 million gap looming. Doing nothing is an option, and we are now rolling up our sleeves trying to get on with the job. Again, good luck with that. I have a feeling he's going to fail spectacularly on this, honestly, on this one. We are trying to lead the way for the councils with this pioneering deep dive. Yeah. And what happens when this doesn't work, Dan? What happens when this doesn't work? Because I have a feeling it's not going to work. Because if the DOGE unit down in Kent has pretty much said, yeah, we couldn't find anything, it's impossible. You've got Zia Yusuf quitting as the head of DOGE. What's going to happen next? Don't think there's going to be too much promised, honestly, for that to happen to save him. But he's going to end up with egg on his face. Massively so. Anyway, so we're leading this way for the pioneering this deep dive for the services that are, of course, critical, supported by the greater team of officers, of course, working besides the consultants. We want now new insight and ideas, getting fresh pair of eyes from outside. The council will help us to get the maximum value for our council taxpayers. Why on earth would you say that? Why on earth would you say that? Oh, yeah. What we need is new insight and fresh ideas for a fresh pair of eyes from outside the council. You ran on being that, Dan. Every single reform person ran on that. That's what they were doing. There's all these new people. Where have all their fresh ideas come? Oh, that's right. They haven't got any fresh ideas because they've got no idea what they're doing. This is, I tell you now, if I lived in Leicestershire, I would be very worried what's going to happen. I don't think they're going to meet these deadlines. As I've said, he's out. The finance guy just quit this week as well. They're going to have to appoint someone new. Why? Because remember, it's a council's legal duty to balance those books. Who takes the fall if those books aren't balanced? Well, first of all, it's the finance guy. I wonder why he's left. Can't help but think why he might have left. Anyway, Carissa Harrison Fowler, the newly appointed cabinet member for resources, also said, the scale of the challenge mean we now need to dig very deep and act decisively. Balancing books, of course, requires a very tight grip. Make no mistake, this is a very big task, but I'm confident we can generate practical ways to driving down our costs. Again, how are you going to do this when the previous Conservative Council managed to deliver and do cuts of about £280 million over from 2050, 2010, I think it was, they said, to 2025. What else are you going to cut? Because it seems like they've done everything they can on that front. Anyway, the initial, of course, recommendations for saving are, of course, expected early in the new year and will, of course, inform future budgets. The council, of course, has said, however, the authority is expected to go into public consultation on next year's 2026-27 budget in December, ahead now of the spending plan being signed off by councillors in February, which, trust me, is going to be very fun indeed when all that stuff starts going through. Yeah, we've got a very busy couple of months starting in December when it comes to all that council, stuff on that front. That's going to be hilarious when that starts. Anyway, Leicestershire Reform UK, of course, was confirmed, is, of course, planning to raise council tax for residents for the next financial year. This is also now currently expected to be at least a 3% rise rather than the potentially full 5% hike, but it still marks, of course, a U-turn on the previous leadership promises to cut taxes. The Local Democracy Reporting Service has, of course, previously asked Councillor Harrison why a freeze or reduction in council tax was no longer considered viable for the coming year. We also asked what criteria needed to be met, of course, for the increase to remain at the intended 3%. And should it come to a choice between an even higher council tax or cutting services, what the administration's first priority would be? We did not get any direct answers to those questions because they don't know. They don't know how to answer those questions. Instead, he said, of course, I want to keep council tax rises to a minimum, and my ambition is try to peg it at 3%. I'm working very hard to do that, but I'm also trying to listen what this would mean for our services. It's very important we get this right, but it's too early in the budget cycle to give precise figures. But we still need to do more analysis. It's done over the next month or so. We'll be able to say more about our proposals. Again, putting all his eggs, he's putting all his eggs into that audit basket, and that hope that somehow, in some way, that audit is going to save them somehow. It's going to say, "Oh yeah, you can do this. Yeah, you can save money by doing this." I would be very, very worried. I would be so worried. The fact that this is the direction they're going, I would be so worried on this front. I don't think that's going to work for them very well at all. So, as always, um, thank you very much for watching. If you are from Leicestershire and you live in this area, please, as always, leave your comments down below about what you think about all this, because this is going to cause, if they do not meet these deadlines, it's going to cause some fun in your local area. A lot of fun. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.